Story 1. I am not afraid of being dead. I doubt I will be around to care much about it, and it is a natural process. The process of dying, though, I am utterly terrified of. Story 2. Dying? Yes. Being dead? Less so. I have no idea what comes next and have always found it hard to believe that any living person truly knows. The dying is the scary part. I just hope it happens instantly. My condolences to all who have had to suffer. Story 3. No. It is inevitable. Because of that, literally nothing we do matters. I am okay with that. I am just here for the ride. Story 4. I have been thinking about this question recently, and my answer is no. I have accomplished the thing at the top of my bucket list. I feel miserable at work. I have no commitments, and there is nobody I love. There is nothing that I want to do, nowhere I want to go, and no one I want to see right now. So, I guess I will have no regrets dying. Story 5. I am absolutely terrified, and I also believe in God, so I am not sure why I am so afraid. Anything related to medical situations and hospitals is terrifying to me and causes anxiety and panic attacks. Any advice is appreciated. Story 6. Yes, very much. Whoever tells you they are not is either extremely religious or suicidal. I believe it is necessary to be afraid of death in order to keep ourselves safe and avoid doing foolish things. Also, the more you fear death, the more you ensure that you make something meaningful out of the only life you have been given. The sole reason for our existence and the only way to accept death a little better when our time comes is to make sure that you feel accomplished. Make sure that you experience, enjoy, and fulfill all your wishes in life in order to die surrounded by people whom you love and who will remember the beautiful things you did for them. Whether you left a mark on society or simply left a mark in someone's heart, both are equally important and valid. Story 7. Yes, because I do not want to cease to exist. While I believe in God, which may be a manifestation of my fear, I am afraid there is nothing. I do not want to be nothing. Story 8. Yes and no. I want the suffering to end, but I also know that there will be no happiness or consciousness afterward. I believe there is nothing after this, so the finality of death scares me. Story 9. Not afraid of dying. I just don't want to leave my husband alone. We do not have children. Distant relatives are already circling like vultures. We are older and not in the best of health. Story 10. Not really, but it is just so hard for me to process that everything will be over for me one day. All of the passions, the love, trees, colorful sunsets, all gone. We are such complex beings but still face the inevitable, and it messes with me. Story 11. I'm not really afraid, but I am more scared of missing out on everything that I would have seen if I had lived. If I were to die now, then I would miss my children growing further into their teenage years and becoming young adults. Finding out the kind of people that my children would grow up to be. Story 12. No, not at all. Honestly, it feels nice that one day we will all die. It makes everything in life meaningless, but in a good way. Like all the regrets, all embarrassing moments you had, and things like that do not matter at all if you really think about it, since you will die and be forgotten like the rest of the population. Everything will die one day, and there must be a reason for that. I think our awareness about life and death is a bug in nature since every other animal does not care about it. Story 13. Yes and no. I am afraid of leaving my family behind and what would happen to them once I am gone. But I am also not afraid of dying because I believe that everything happens for a reason, and if it is my time, then I must be ready. Story 14. No, I am not scared of dying. Just the concept of not existing freaks me out. To be honest, it is like, how was it before I was born? Geez, talk about existential crisis. I kind of wish I could undo that thought. Laugh out loud. Also, fear of missing out kicks in. I hate missing out on future exciting technology and memes. So yes, not dying, but missing out, that is the real kicker. Story 15. I already went through the fear process a couple of times, and now I am in a place where I know everything will be okay. I flatlined last year, and I have a new respect for death. We all have to go, and I have a knowing that something is on the other side. Not religious per se, But we do not and cannot comprehend how insignificant this life is compared to the rest of the journey. Story 16. I am terrified. Not of the act of dying, but of what comes after. I am an atheist, so I believe that after this, I am just gone, just like before I was born. It really should not terrify me, but it does. I am scared. I do not want this experience to end. Sure, I live a terrible life, but I am scared that if I were to die right now, this would be the only conscious experience I will ever have. Story 17. I am not afraid of death itself, but sometimes I imagine what oblivion is like, and it terrifies me. It is the existential dread of what comes next and whether anything matters at all. Story 18. It's more about how I might die that can be scary. If I die while I am asleep, that sounds all right. I do not want to leave my loved ones, and I want to enjoy being alive. But if I could choose, it would probably be in my sleep, quietly. Getting eaten by an animal is definitely not something I want. Story 19. No, not scared of dying. It's the way that creeps me out. To be honest, just want to go out relaxing, not suffering, you feel? We are all just stardust, going to make it back home one day, you know? Story 20. Not really, because I know I am temporary here, like a man under a tree taking a little break during a long journey, the journey being eternity itself, and I am almost curious about it. The idea that when struck by a disaster, surely to God we belong and to Him we will all return, gives me some sort of comfort. Story 21. No. I do things because I am still here. I am not still here because there are more things I want to do. I have one obligation to fulfill, and when that is done, I am completely ready. Story 22. I've been ripped apart by a dog and nearly had my heart stop from blood loss. It didn't hurt. Your body goes into shock. It was a horribly chaotic event. I remember my mom holding me, terrified and covered in blood, but it was mostly a disoriented peacefulness, as if I was calmly watching it from a third-person perspective. Then I faded out. I woke up in a full face cast, high on painkillers, excited to suck lime jelly through a straw. So I'm not really afraid of dying in a situation like that. Your body does a lot to take care of you in those moments. I don't fear being forgotten or not existing anymore, but I do fear not living a life I can be proud of when I do pass away. So far, so good. Story 23, more afraid of not really living, you know? The first 45 years or so of my life were marked by poverty, difficult relationships, and chronic depression. I am now 50. I got a tattoo, grew my hair long, and started my own business. Next up. Maybe a motorcycle, more tattoos, a piercing, a mistress perhaps? Story 24. I used to be skeptical, but then my brother had a medical emergency and died for a few minutes. I asked him if he saw anything. He said, no, but I didn't want to leave. I felt like I was having the best sleep ever. Story 25. Not afraid of dying. I have endured plenty of pain. If it happens in 20 years or less, I guess it's time off for good behavior. If there is nothing after this, and the lights go out, that is the end. I am okay with that. If I have to wear a toga and learn how to play the harp, I am fine with it. I am in no hurry, but given a choice, I would choose what comes after or nothing over immortality. Story 26. I am not afraid of dying except by violent means, but I am afraid of how it might affect my loved ones. They will care about my death much more than I will after it happens. Story 27. I got blackout drunk once. 1 second I'm awake. The next it's 11 a.m. I'm 99% sure the moment of death feels like a blackout, except there is no waking up a second later. In my opinion, I am indifferent about it because once it happens I won't even comprehend or realize it. Story 28. Yes, I do not believe in an afterlife or anything like that, but I am very scared that when I die, everyone who has died, whether I know them or not, will be shown the most embarrassing things I have done. Story 29. I do not want to die, and I hope I do not for a long time. But death is something you can fear forever, yet only have to face once. Once you face that fear, you will already be dead. Life is forced. Living is a choice. Story 30. It is like a ride at an amusement park. I am not afraid of getting off the ride, but I am having fun and do not want the ride to be over yet. Story 31. I fear that when I die and my brain malfunctions firing off synapses and whatnot, I will be caught in a bad trip that, in my perception, lasts a million billion years. That being said, it could be a good trip. It might be similar to psychedelics in that the mindset and environment for your death really matter, so you have to get right with yourself and have a clear conscience before you die. You could die at any moment. I always try to do what I believe is right as often as possible, and make up for it when I have not. Of course, you should do that anyway, but that is just another reason. Story 32. No. This body may die, but I will go on. For I am not this body. I am the awareness within. Tat-tifo-a-m-i-s-e. Story 33. I am not afraid of dying so much as saddened by the idea of no longer living and losing the realm of human experience. That feeling is obviously more intense when applied to an early death, as there is more to miss out on and because of the grief caused to loved ones. However, I think I would feel the same at the age of 80. It is hard to know how I will feel in a hypothetical future. Story 34. I am not really afraid of it. I see it as being afraid of tomorrow. I know it is coming, but I do not know what will happen then. So, what good would being afraid of it do to me if ultimately I cannot do anything other than wait for it to come? Story 35. I will go out kicking and screaming, but I will not say I am afraid of death. I have been exposed to death all my life and know it is inevitable, but the urge to survive is a powerful thing. Story 36. No. It is inevitable. I hope it is sudden, but like every challenge in life, you just manage through it until you do not. Maybe because I have multiple chronic illnesses and have been told I could die soon for 40 years, I am a bit indifferent about it. Story 37. Yes, I am afraid of it because the picture I have in my mind of myself before I achieve my goals is important. I do not want to die before achieving them. Eventually, everyone dies, but I want to accomplish my goals before that happens. Story 38. I worry about how I will die, hopefully peaceful and painless, or at least quick. But I do not fear being dead. I cannot bring myself to fear nothing. Eventually, I will not exist, my brain will cease to function, and everything that makes me will be gone, and that is okay. I am not concerned with legacy. If I can improve the lives of people around me in even a small way, I feel I have succeeded in living. Whether I am remembered is irrelevant. Story 39. It is really obnoxious how materialist, slanted, and intolerant of spirituality mainstream Reddit is. You cannot share your views if you are not a spiritual atheist. I am an atheist, though a spiritual one, and I know I would just get a lot of criticism if I said why I was not afraid of dying. Everyone else who posted about believing there is something after death in this thread did. Story 40. I'm not exactly afraid of dying, not in the traditional panic-filled sense, but death is something that hovers around my thoughts like a heavy fog. It's familiar. It's been there since I was 10, not as a dramatic fantasy, but as a soft, aching idea. Something quiet, something that sometimes feels like relief. I don't fear the concept of being dead. In some ways, the idea of not having to feel anymore is comforting. What unsettles me more is dying badly. In pain, alone, misunderstood, or with things left unsaid. I'm terrified of dying without ever having been fully known or loved for who I really am beneath all the fear and masks. There's also a kind of guilt tied into it. I know people care about me, and the thought of hurting them by disappearing makes it harder. I don't want to become someone else's trauma. Yet, when the emptiness gets loud, that guilt sometimes fades. Story 41. No, I am scared of death at all. I am way more scared of the pain of dying, though. Imagine being stabbed multiple times and feeling every bit of pain until you die. Yes, that is brutal. Story 42. I am not afraid of dying, but I am afraid of how it will happen. I have a mood disorder and a history of past attempts on my life. Most of the time, I do not want to die, but when I spiral into that mindset, it feels like I have never been happy and there is no other way out. It terrifies me how many times I have almost lost my life by my own actions. Story 43. The pain associated with dying, yes. Death itself, no. I look forward to it. Why? Feels like I die every day anyway. Story 44. I am not. At 73, I have had a good life and I am still strong and healthy. Alas, all good things must come to an end. Better accept it. Story 45. I think I am more afraid of missing out on living. I feel like there is so much I would like to see and do. Story 46. I am not afraid of dying. Honestly, I can't wait to be gone from this world. However, I am a little afraid of how I will die because I do not want it to be painful. Story 47. No and yes. Yes and no. I am bitter in life, and I say that I would like to die tomorrow and not have to endure this life anymore. But I know for a fact that if they gave me that chance, I wouldn't do it. I am terrified of dying in agony or pain. I hope that when it comes, I won't beg for a second longer and will accept it as it is. But I don't know if I'll react like that since it is speculation. You never know what it will be like. In conclusion, I am afraid of dying, but since I know that I will rest, that fear is reduced. Story 48. Death is inevitable, and I will go to either paradise or hell depending on how many good deeds I have. I am planning on creating Earth in paradise with everyone there, and hosting the biggest chicken eating contest in all of Earth's history. Story 49. No. I had a close call many years ago. Nothing spectacular like in the movies. I just choked while eating at a restaurant. I remember feeling very scared and struggling to breathe. But at the very end, when I thought I was finished, I felt incredibly at peace. Story 50. I am not afraid because I believe that it will free me from the pain of living, but I fear the pain involved with it. Story 51. Not in the slightest. No heaven, no hell. I imagine it is pretty much like before I was born or conceived. It is just nothing. Story 52. If I were alone, I would not be afraid because loneliness is an indescribable kind of suffering. But if I were loved by others, then I would be afraid to leave them behind. Story 53. Not really. It is inevitable, but I am afraid of how it may happen. Alzheimer's disease is common in my family, and I just do not want to go the way my grandparents did. Not knowing anyone, being unable to remember anything, and eventually forgetting how to even swallow. Story 54. Absolutely not. I cannot wait to see the loved ones I have lost who are waiting for me on the other side. Someday, my ticket will be punched, and it will be met with so much warmth and love. Story 55. A little perspective. Everyone knows they are going to die, but no one knows when. So I was never scared of dying. But now that I have a when, it is truly terrifying. Story 56. I have met many people who are afraid of death. No one knows exactly what death feels like, and maybe it is the fear of the unknown. In most cases, it is the pain that people are scared of. Story 57. No, because there are no worries, no taxes, no working, no sweating, no annoying loud people around, no war, and no fear of criminals. Like, no. Story 58. Man, I'm afraid that there's nothing after all the suffering we go through here on Earth. I really hope there is something beyond death, and not reincarnation. Story 59. I do not know, but I am not afraid of dying. Why? Because I think I can be free from this difficult life and not be responsible for many things, whether they are important or not. However, this is when I am still single and do not have a family. If I have a family, I think it will be different. Story 60. Of dying? No, I do not think there is anything to be afraid of. I am terrified of leaving my children and partner, though. Story 61. Not really afraid of dying, the process of dying, or being dead. But I do fear dying too early before I can set up my children and complete a few other things. If I were, say, 80 and received a terminal diagnosis, I could accept that it was my time to go. No worries and no regrets. Story 62. I am just afraid to die because I have many dreams. So many things I want to experience and do, to make a name for myself. But like in a snap of a finger, it will not matter if I die, which is so strange. Imagine working hard your whole life and then dying because of an accident or something. This really bothers me. Story 63. My grandmother had Alzheimer's disease. My uncle and both my grandfathers died from cancer. I saw suffering on a level that is difficult to comprehend. My grandfather said, "You come into this world kicking and screaming, and you go out kicking and screaming. Story 64. After psychedelics, dreams, and everything, I am only scared of leaving my son alone in this world full of bad people. Story 65. No, because it is a part of life. I am afraid of not dying naturally, such as in an accident or something similar. Story 66. I have the natural human fear of it, but I have almost died so many times that I have come to realize there is only one thing every human who has ever existed has proven. We all die, so fear not. Story 67. I'm not scared of being on the other side because my sister is already there, and she did everything before me. She always was my leader, but I saw her writhing in pain to get there, and I am scared of that, of the crossing. Story 68. I think it will be interesting to see what happens. Everything seems to work in a circle, so I am betting I will end up as a grand old oak or something similar. Maybe something even stranger, but at least no more rent. Story 69. No. I look at it like a robot being turned off. It is not like you are going to hate being dead or miss being alive or have any regrets. You are simply gone. I am just afraid of the pain, suffering, and indignity that almost inevitably precede death. Story 70. No, I do not see a point in being afraid of something I cannot change, and that happens to everyone. I think for me as well, it helps that I firmly believe in an afterlife. I am agnostic, so I do not pretend to know what it is, but I have always deeply felt that there is something, and that gives me comfort. Story 71. There is a video game called Persona 3 Reload that explores this question very well. Play it if you can. It changed my view on death. Story 72. Living is much scarier. The only deaths I fear are those of my loved ones, particularly my wife and my cat. Story 73. Yes and no. I do not want to be alive, but the thoughts of hell and eternal nothingness scare me a lot. Story 74. No. I have been suicidal since I was 16. I should have died when I was born. I have always been ready to die. Story 75. I died twice from drug overdose. Each time, it felt like falling in those dreams you have and then jerking awake as you hit the floor. Except in these cases, you don't jerk awake when you hit the floor, you go straight through. I remember seeing visions of people who loved me crying, then complete darkness. In the dark, there were glowing lights that got brighter and dimmer slowly or faster and changed colors. I could feel they were other spirits or intelligence. After what seemed like an eternity, I felt my soul being weighed by ancient Chinese-looking gods. There were many, all discussing me. They decided, no, not this time. I felt a surge and became conscious again. It took me about a week or more each time to get used to being back in my body. I felt out of sync, and it absolutely terrified me at the time. But to answer your question, after those experiences, I am not afraid to die. There is somewhere else you go. It is painless, and time doesn't work the same there. That is my experience. Story 76. The feeling of nothingness ceases to exist. Sounds peaceful, but at the same time, there is no life in it. Story 77. I would not have been, but unfortunately, when I was a child, I was constantly threatened with hell. Now, death does bring me some anxiety. Story 78. I am more afraid of how I will die or dying too soon. I do not want to die before my father, for example. I do not want to die in a lot of pain, but the chances of dying peacefully in your sleep are very low. I think it is much more common to die alone in a very uncomfortable state. Story 79. No, my life insurance policy is sufficient for my family, and the world is difficult right now. I will miss eating copious amounts of Van Leeuwen's buttermilk berry cornbread ice cream and listening to Longma Potion Castle, but it is okay. When death comes, let it happen. Story 80. I was in a near-fatal car accident that tore an artery and caused me to bleed out. I broke several ribs and vertebrae as well. There was no pain, just an ache in my left side. I think the brain does a good job of blocking pain when a person is in really bad shape like I was. I flatlined several times, once for at least a few minutes. I remember being loaded into the ambulance, then waking up in the intensive care unit on a breathing tube 2 days later. For those 2 days, I simply did not exist. A timeless, dreamless sleep, like when undergoing surgery. Maybe it is different for everyone depending on beliefs, but it was exactly as expected, nothing, just like before birth. There is nothing to be afraid of. Story 81. I am afraid of dying because I have so much I want to live for, like starting my own family. I have always wanted children and to be a parent. I am also afraid of dying because I do not know what is next. I think it is just the loss of consciousness, and not being able to be conscious frightens me. However, the more near-death experiences I have heard about, the more relaxed I become about death. Story 82. Sometimes I am afraid when I find nothingness and meaninglessness disturbing. I am not afraid after a good night's sleep because I know when I die I will finally sleep for good. Story 83. I am just afraid of dying from some disease or suffering a fate imposed on me by others because of differing beliefs. Story 84. The end of life is something people can accept. It is living with a low quality of life or suffering that people do not want to experience. Story 85. The thought of death used to really frighten me. I would lie in bed and have many thoughts night after night. Then I became a believer in Jesus. I no longer fear death at all. However, I would like it to be instantaneous, not a slow, painful death. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.